If I truly want this life to be lived as love, then love doesn't need moments to hide out behind feeling triggered. So I just gave a session where there was a discovery of being expanding, being radiant. There was a discovery of being light. And in the conversation about this, awareness also of how clear the difference is between being this, which we might call expanding or light or self, as compared to trying to be this. And so the language that came out of this session was not turning away from being self, not betraying wholeness. And I was reflecting on, would we find any other words to look at that same experience? Because my experience in this exchange was that it is so nonverbal and so essential that it's clear. And also there are words that can describe this that are helpful. And maybe I'm curious how it shows up for you. This, because I said you and I have used the word betrayal before. And a line of inquiry that really came alive for me just before here is an inquiry about reflecting for myself. How do I betray myself? Or how do I betray what I know to be true? Silence. Because that is a question that does have an immediate answer for me right now. It's clear. It's like any sort of internal squeezing, pushing, trying to get something, trying to manage something, trying to strategize or calculate, which can show up in 100 different ways. All of that is a betrayal. But it feels really tasty, It's like, oh, but I just want to control this one thing that feels quite important. How does it show up for you if I ask you that question?
Well, just before I answer that, I do like the word betrayal, but the last thing you said there really points to indulgence.
That's right. Yeah, it's part of it.
So there's so many different angles and so many different words, and I feel like it's great to use different ones all the time because it'll expose the pattern in a new light or a different way that it shows up.
Mhm.
To betray is one thing, but then to, be aware of something and then consciously indulge in it because it's tasty, like you said, that's a whole nother level.
Yeah, I have an example coming up, but I also really want to hear from you, and I'm not sure which one first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, can I give this example?
Yeah.
Because it really was it was a revelation for me. Last week or maybe a few weeks ago, I was out walking and it was like quite a nice day. And I was out walking and I was very wound up, feeling really agitated. I don't even remember what about, but as I was walking, I had this internal narrative going of I shouldn't be so wound up. I'm trying to get unwound by walking. Why am I so wound up? How can I get unwound? And at the same time, inherent in this narrative is a story that I'm way too wound up right now to be able to actually relax. And that's a familiar story. It's a familiar story. And it comes with a victim flavor of, well, I really want to be peaceful, but right now I can't because it's all too much. And I'm still gonna be all pissed off about this, even though I'm trying to make it better. It's even worse that I want it to be better and it's not. And I was in the session with Lisa maybe a day or two after, and being in her company, I realized that that this is a lie. I realized the truth is so simple, actually. It felt like a big, heavy burden that I was carrying that I needed to deal with. And really, it was just in that case, anyways. And I don't know if this is true for anyone else or any other case, but certainly in that familiar pattern for me, I was just indulging in a very tasty obsession about trying to fix something and the suffering that that causes internally. And even though it felt big, powerful, tightly wound, and insurmountable, it wasn't real. It was created by my own indulgence in wanting to control my emotions. And in a moment of seeing that, oh, I don't have to do that ever again.
Yeah, the seeing it takes care of it, which is great. Within this indulgence, there's a belief. So that's another angle to kind of look at it. Because if you don't believe it, then the whole thing falls apart. So it takes you actually buying into it. And I really like the word belief because it was pointed out to me by someone recently that it has the word lie in it. And you've already exposed, it's not real. So it's just showing that any belief, any thought, it's not trustworthy, right? Like it seemed like it was insurmountable. You said it seemed that way, but that's not actually true. And so to actually put this in a broader context, it's like no belief is reliable. No belief is trustworthy. If you realize that, it takes care of a lot.
Yeah, and I wonder if I can bring in the word responsibility here. The responsibility, when I was out walking, the responsibility was my own to stop, to stop, which is really different from being burdened by the responsibility to fix.
What does stop mean?
Nothing. It doesn't mean anything. It's important, actually. It's not a mental description of something. It's a moment of stopping in the momentum of all of this pushing and moving and trying to get, and as if stopping in my tracks, right in the middle of it, and being naked in the experience, just as it is without commentary, free from trying to control, free from trying to get anything. Because, like you said, this pattern of trying to get, trying to fix the overwhelm of emotion, it's not reliable.
That's right. So beliefs aren't reliable, emotions aren't reliable. What is reliable?
Quiet, quiet exposes the truth which is eternally changing, unknowable beauty, and yet reliable, transparent. What would you say is reliable?
Same answer. You said quiet exposes the truth. I would say quiet is the truth. And the reason it's reliable is because it's always here. At any moment, silence is here. The beliefs are constantly changing, emotions constantly changing. And just like in some cases, obviously not reliable. Like you get scared or freak out about something, and then afterwards realize I had no reason to be scared about that. That was nothing. Or an example I once heard Jared use is like you see a fluff on the ground, you think it's a spider and get scared, and then realize afterwards it was just a fluff. So inherently, these things aren't reliable. You can't place your trust into them, otherwise, you'll go down a road of suffering.
Yes, and that doesn't necessarily mean that emotions will go away. It's more about how we relate to them, what we believe is real in experiencing them.
Yeah, because I would just say for myself that, to relate beliefs and emotions together is important. Like, I've noticed a lot of my beliefs stem from, like, they're motivated by a certain emotion. And by believing the story and indulging in it, as we're talking about, that is a way for me to avoid the emotion. So I don't have to feel it because my intention is in my head on what I'm thinking about. So even in the midst of a belief coming up or an intense emotion coming up, silence is still here either way. And, you've exposed this choice point. See if I can get your words right. Fight myself or be myself.
Yeah, for me, that is the choice. It's very simple.
It's kind of funny when you recognize yourself to be silent that what are you really fighting with? When you recognize emotions and beliefs aren't real, what are you really fighting with?
Nothing and love at the same time. And I sense that for you, indulgence might have a different flavor. Could I ask you if it does or how it might show up for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily describe it as fighting because mine is more mental. The movement is more away and it's just really heady. I start to get analytical and just go on thought loops as a way to avoid my emotions. So it's really this indulgence in a story, which is indulging in this belief, this core central belief that I am my thoughts. I am that one who is telling that story and figuring it out and working out what to do and how to take care of it. So if we kind of rewind back to what we spoke about last week, this belief that I'm not good enough, I'm a piece of crap, it's really just indulging in that story and thinking about it and all the examples of why it's true. And here's the proof and thinking about what other people think of me, like really projecting it outwards. And then from there, my behavior follows that. It's like, okay, well, I need to withdraw. I need to hide. Because I'm not good enough and everyone knows it and sees it. So I better just stay home in my little cave and not show myself.
How is that a betrayal?
That's a betrayal of silence. That's a betrayal of love. That's a betrayal of truth. because it's giving all my attention into this false reality, let's say, rather than just being quiet, which, like you said, is so simple. It's not always easy, but there's such a simplicity to it.
So how do you stop betraying yourself?
It's really like you said, seeing it takes care of it. Becoming conscious of what I'm doing gives that choice. And then there's a possibility to take responsibility. It's not like there's something to do. Silence is here. The possibility to be quiet is always here.
This brings up for me the conversation we had a few days ago about triggers. When I hear you say the possibility to be quiet is always here, I'm aware of moments where I need to hear that or remember it or be aware of this possibility. And specifically, I think of moments where I'm using air quotes, I feel triggered. Because for me, as soon as I say I feel triggered, it's like an excuse to disengage, an excuse to um, go offline, an excuse to turn away from the possibility of being quiet. Not always. I mean, maybe there are times where it's a reaction that's not sincerely in my control, but most of the time that I'm saying, oh, I'm triggered, it's a turning away.
Yeah, you certainly pointed this out to me in that conversation that you're referring back to, where I said I was triggered by something, and you just, were pretty direct in saying it sounds like an excuse the way you're saying it. And that was bang on. I really received that and was able to take it in and realize how true it was. And that opened things up for me. So, this topic of triggers to me is a really big one, a really important one. I don't know if that needs its own podcast in itself. Maybe we talk about that next time, but the angle that I'd really like to discuss it from is around movement, which we exposed in our first episode, I believe. And I think it would be really beautiful to have a more in-depth conversation about what types of movements trigger us, and then what is our movement in reaction to that.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm just really aware of the simplicity of when I use the words, I feel triggered. It comes with like a shrug of my shoulders and a shaking of my head. And it's really an expression of no, I don't want this to be happening. I don't want to deal with it. And in this experience, no is the indulgence. No is the words of betrayal.
Yeah. And that's the same for me, only maybe there'll be a little bit of a difference in how it shows up. I mean, it's definitely a no, but when I say I'm triggered, what I really mean most of the time, maybe all the time, is I'm afraid. And I don't really consciously recognize that every time in the moment. And it's so funny to come to you a few days ago, coming back to this conversation again, where I told you I was triggered about something. And when you pointed out it was an excuse, I immediately realized, yeah, why do I even see it through that lens? what was really going on. And when I reflected, it's an immediate recognition that I was afraid. And one of the things that's been pointed out to me repeatedly by Jared, one of our teachers at the Leela School, is the fear is already there. The trigger is just exposing what was kind of hidden. And so it's not a bad thing. It's actually, triggers can be really useful. It's an opportunity to expose and go deeper.
Yeah, that's true for me as well. What I call a trigger is usually just an experience that I wouldn't have chosen in that moment. And there's some experience of discomfort around that, and it can be a teacher.
Your relationship to triggers is so important because when I say I'm triggered, what then happens is I go into a story of blame that this other person triggered me and why do I have to deal with this or whatever. That's one version. But when I say I'm afraid, that changes the experience totally. There's no blame about anything, there's no projection outwards. It's a reflection inwards. And it's a great opportunity for me to see maybe I was living in a trance, going along thinking everything was okay and my comfortable little world, and I was happy doing my own little thing. Actually, I was telling myself a story about what was going on, believing I was my thoughts. And meanwhile, really, I was afraid the whole time and didn't know it. So I apologize to anyone that I have blamed for triggering me because really it's been a help. It's been useful in my own inquiry.
Yeah, simple for me, I notice. Simple because if I truly want this life to be lived as love, and that's really clear, then love doesn't need moments to hide out behind feeling triggered. Love doesn't need moments to turn away into suffering, into avoidable suffering.
Yes, to everything you said. And thank you for bringing in love because as I reflect again on just saying I'm afraid, that has a quality of love to it. It's really the yes, which is opposite to the no that you exposed. And yes is loving.
The capacity for everything to be as it is without effort.
That feels like a really beautiful way to end this episode, actually, what you just said.
Yes. And we both get so quiet. Love is quiet and open, and there's nothing to hide. No need to do anything else.
Yeah, that feels really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas.